Radio.world.
Northwest Film Forum's Collective Power Fund is now open for grant applications. Grants are starting at $2,000 up to $10,000 for individual or artist collectives. The annual grant cycle focuses primarily on supporting art that incites public dialogue, pushes boundaries, explores genre fluidity, speaks its truth through an authentic perspective, and is often non-traditional, anti-institutional, socially responsible, or disruptive of any existing structures and conventions. Learn more and apply at collectivepowernw.org.
Rainier Avenue Radio presents All Music, All Day Saturday. Music, All Day Saturday.
This is Edwin Bailey, Bulldog Blue.
Jazz from the Cabinets.
That's right. It's time once again for Jazz from the Cabinets with Big Poppy.
Start Time.
Thanks for tuning in. My name is Paul Pierce.
This is Start Time. Saturdays, all music, all day. Reggae Hour, K-Fox Night.
You looking for the perfect beat? Yeah, it's the beat of the box.
Fresh Juice, D-Money in the group.
Myself to the money. Honey Size Patron.
Taylor Hart.
Resistencia, the Northwest Rap Gang.
DJ Medina. Chad Cheddar.
Come on, man.
Northwest Rap Gang.
Sergio Lacour's Love Line.
It's Sergio's Love Lines with Sergio LaCour. Go to the phone line. Tell them who we talking.
Sea Monster Radio, Mo Jams. It's your jam.
We're live. Welcome to Mojo Mondays. This is KZ of KZ Music Media. Caller Goddess for Mojo Mondays.
Just my opinion. God is inspiration all day and all night. Saturdays on Rainier Avenue Radio.org.
Mga kaibigan, ito po si Kuya Bert Kawili.
And this is Miles Salvador from Australia.
And I'm Norb Kawili, also known as Norbcam.
Kung gusto niyo po ang latest news and events from the Philippines at the local Filipino community, Phil-Am Radio po.
We play Filipino music and interview guests from all around the world.
And I'll keep you updated on the latest Seahawks and sports news.
Kaya always tune in, Phil-Am Radio every Tuesday, 1 to 2:30 p.m. Pacific Time on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
And in YouTube and Facebook. Salamat po.
What's up, my good people? It's your girl, Queen Bree, director of Clean Greens Farm and Market, stopping by to invite you to our block party style grand opening. Come join us June 25th, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at 116 21st Avenue. There will be free food, live demonstrations, samples of our fresh organic produce, games, and more. For more information and to stay updated on Clean Greens, follow us on Instagram at Clean Greens Farm Market. And I'll see you at the block party June 25th.
This is Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
You're listening to Heartbeat Radio. I'm your host, Cindi Bright. Heartbeat Radio is a conversation aimed to take the pulse of corporate America. Opportunities for people of color, we're getting lost in the shuffle of change. I'm that provocateur of change. The hearts of corporate America are addressed. Access and opportunities will be accelerated for all people. Through Heartbeat Radio, you will gain a deeper understanding of what is necessary for change. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Heartbeat Radio and Podcast. I am your host, Cindi Bright. Before we start off the show tonight, I have a few things I wanted to say and address before we enter in my co-host and the candidates that we have on tonight. First and foremost, I hardly ever really talk publicly about my family other than my son, but I do want to acknowledge I have some family down in California who are sick, very sick from COVID. And so they join us here every week on Heartbeat. This is my family, Penny and Bonnie, and I'm just sending the both of you some love from Seattle, Washington to get better and get well and get rid of that darn COVID. Bonnie, you particularly. So I love you guys. I hope you're here with me tonight. I just wanted to make sure you knew I was thinking about you guys tonight. Before we start, before I bring Joy in, let me just talk about a couple things tonight. Last week we had on candidates who were running for re-election. Tonight we are going to have two candidates on that are running and competing for the seat that Representative Kirsten Harris-Talley is vacating. I think all of you have seen, well, let me introduce the candidates. I'm not going to bring them on quite yet. We have Chipalo Street coming on and Emijah Smith. Representative Harris-Talley is leaving the seat. And I think many of you saw the article in the Emerald about her departure from the legislature. She is a one-term legislator who did an interview with the Emerald. If we can show that article.
And there were some very compelling things in that article that I think is important that we pay attention to, particularly as candidates are looking to fill those seats. She talked about a culture of toxicity. She talked about a culture, in my words, I will use the term bullying, of what was happening to her as a first-time candidate and being kind of whipped into shape and told to get in line. I think all of us as Black people have heard that and experienced that all through our lives. She talked about a lack of integrity that was going on in the caucus. And she did call out and say there were some really well-principled people that are there. But we're at a place now where, look, let's bring Joy in with me to have this part of the conversation before we bring our guests on. Joy, welcome back on with me today. We know Joy and I both ran for office. Joy ran twice. I ran once. We met in 2018. Joy re-ran again in 2020. We know the grind and what is required to get in office. It is no joke. And to get people into office and elected, we have focused this show heavily on helping to propel and promote candidates into office. This work that is going on behind the scenes to help get us represented, just to lose the demographic of people that we need to have elected with one term, is beyond frustrating and beyond exhausting for us as Brown and Black community to be advocating and supporting. Would you agree with this, Joy, about?
Yeah, I was heartbroken is what I would say. I was heartbroken when Jesse announced his, and then even more so because, I'm friends with Kristen. And I was like, what? We finally got someone in there who's going to speak truth to power and, push the envelope. And she was the one that I felt had that personality and that demeanor and that class and style to do it in a way to bring other folks along. So for her to get in there and then stay one term, which, by the way, we said this before on another show, short session is rough. It is rough on our elected officials. I'm not even sure why we do it. How can we change that so that they have time to do the work that we elect them to do when they go there?
Well, that's
60 days is not enough time. 60 days is not enough time.
But that's the key to tonight's show, is that the people that we get elected to do the work. Now, I have said this, I've been criticized for it, but I've said this, that, I give elected officials one term to get their feet underneath them, to get acclimated, and it's hard because they, the Black women, Black people that we're putting into office are going in fiercely moving to try to get things done, because we all know as a marginalized community just how difficult.
Limited amount of time.
And it's a game of math. And so the game of math is, you've got to build relationships. You've got to be able to move things. But when you're dealing within your own caucus, the battle within your own caucus to keep you in line, that's the same, supremacist behavior towards us, to tell us to do as we tell you to do and not do what your constituents have put you into office to do. And so, herein lies, so we have a vacant seat, and so I don't want to take up the time. I want to bring on the candidates to be able to have that conversation with them. Let's introduce the first candidate for the first half of the show. We're bringing in Chipalo Street. Welcome to Heartbeat Radio, Chipalo.
Hi, ladies. How are you tonight?
Good. How are you? Welcome on the show.
I'm good. First, let's start off with sending some thoughts and prayers to your family. We want to be done with COVID, but everyone knows that while the test numbers are down, it's likely because they're not being reported. I mean, when was the last time that you reported an at-home test to the authorities? So thoughts and prayers to your family.
Thank you for that. But she is definitely suffering longer than we'd like. So thank you for that. Look, we want to give you an open floor before we start asking you questions about, talk to the community about your decision to run for this seat. You heard us talking in the prior part about our views about Representative Harris-Talley leaving. What do you want to tell the community about your decision to run? And then share with us the platform that you're running on.
For sure, yeah, you jumped straight into the meat of it. Like, we can start with why I'm running. We can start about the platform. I mean, you guys asked a great question as to what I thought about Kirsten stepping back, and I think my thoughts reflect many of the ones that I've heard here of like being heartbroken. We had someone that we really wanted to speak truth to power, like having the personality and the class and the demeanor to establish these relationships, because it is a very fine line between establishing relationships and moving people towards your viewpoint and isolating them, and really, even in the best terms, like advocating for your position but still isolating people and not making progress. And so we really did hope that we had that person in Kirsten, and so people were sort of taken aback when she stepped back. And not only for the reasons that you guys mentioned, I would also sort of throw in there that she started during COVID. And this is a job of relationships. And I can't imagine trying to establish trusting relationships with 98 people that I don't know over Zoom and thinking that I had some kind of rapport that could move them towards my point of view. So I think there were many things that were sort of stacked against her as we look at the situation. And I guess my overall synopsis of this is, regardless of how you think we got to this position, I think it was a very adult decision for her to step back, and very hard, right? Like, if she got to the point where she realized that her heart wasn't in it, I can imagine so many other people holding on to it, because as you guys said, it takes so much time, it takes so much effort to get elected. And then once you have a position of power and status, many people would hold on to that just because they have it. And so the fact that she stepped back and said, hey, this isn't for me, at least in this time in my life, let someone else who would step up and put their heart and soul into it, like, I applaud that, regardless of what those background and mitigating factors are.
I think her heart and soul was in it.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say I still think it is. I took from that article, because I have not had a chance to talk to her, but I took from that article, there were moments where she couldn't do the work that she may have wanted to do for her constituents in the way that's authentic and genuine for her.
Sure.
And so, and I'm going to make that broad. I think that's every one of us, like Cindi and I ran. We wanted to get in there, and we still wanted to be ourselves. We wanted to be our authentic, genuine selves. So I think there's still room and time for her to come back. And
please don't take that as like she didn't want to do the work. It's more of the environment wears on your heart and soul, and so can't do as good a job as you would like. And so letting someone else step in there, I think, is still a very valiant decision to make.
Interesting enough, both her and Representative Johnson, who left, were both representing the community on police reform. And we're losing both of those two representatives who were advocating for change in that regard. Now we're all watching on national news what happens when any of us start to speak out or do the right things. And so the question becomes, for you, Chipalo, are you equipped and ready to go in and deal with probably unprecedented, maybe that's the right word, but the pressure that will get put upon you when you come in to line up and conform? What are your thoughts about that? Will you be able to navigate that and stand true for the community and not allow yourself to be bullied in the sense that many of those legislators are being forced to line up? I guess that's my first question.
Sure.
Yeah,
For sure. I believe I would, and I would say that I've experienced doing that at Microsoft. So Microsoft is my day job. I work in the office of the chief technology officer, and what my job is guiding executive VPs on company strategy and emerging technology. Now, I may have an opinion, but it may not be their opinion, and it's my job to establish trusting relationships with these folks and then guide them towards what I think is right for the company. And not only is that dealing with people with large egos, which is probably some similar egos in the legislature, it's also a primarily white institution and setting. There's like 2-3% of Black people in that company, or in tech in general. And so I think that's also some of the issues that we deal with in the legislature, where there's a lack of representation of people that look like us. And then sort of specifically to your other question about police accountability, like, that is something that is far too near and dear to my heart. Like, I think all of us, it has touched us in various ways. But when I was at Brown, myself and a friend were walking around campus, and we have a public campus, and we walked onto a public street. and some brown police officers approached me and asked me and my friend for our ID. I was annoyed because it was like, why are you asking for my ID in a public campus and on a public street? So I continued to walk. My friend gave him his ID and then told the police who they were. The police put out an APB for me, and Providence police picked it up. Now, if you read the police report, the Providence police say that I walked around the officer, then the officer got in front of me and grabbed me. I pushed the officer's hands away with my hands up, and then he had to use the least amount of force necessary to subdue the subject. The least amount of force necessary was enough to send me to the hospital before they took me to jail. The least amount of force necessary was enough that a woman or a student who was watching it said she was traumatized by it. And like, I think we all know how some police reports are written. I don't believe it because I was that student. All I remember is getting hit in the back with the head and then like screaming my name, so I just didn't disappear. So like, police accountability is near and dear to my heart. And so while it's sad that we are losing two of those champions for it, I would also definitely be a champion to replace them.
What is your platform?
Excuse me?
What is your platform that you're running on?
Sure. So, I mean, police accountability is one thing that's near and dear to my heart. I've also seen what education has done for my life, and my parents went through extreme efforts to get me into the best schools. So, for example, I went to the best public schools in Washington, D.C. that were outside of my district, and they had to sleep out overnight in front of the school to get on that list. And so like, I have seen what education has done for me, and through that I found a love of computer science in high school, and that's propelled me through Brown and into Microsoft and into a great paying job that allows me to have like buy a house at my age, which is crazy. Like, people can't buy houses anymore, even with like great jobs that aren't in tech. So number one, education. I want every kid to be able to have a great education. I think it's crazy that we don't do a better job of technology education in this region, particularly because it's a industry that's really important, but also changing this region. So we should be preparing our kids to take part in it. And I've given back not only in being active in technology, but also I volunteer taught computer science at Technology Access Foundation. That was a organization that was founded by Trish. And so like, I've actually given my own time back to making sure that kids that look like me can have more digital equity. So there's education, there's also housing. As I mentioned before, I'm blessed that I work in tech, so I can buy a house. Everyone should be able to have stable housing. And so I want to make sure that renters have proper protections, and that we also fix the market forces that are sort of driving these market prices out of whack. And then the last one is making sure that people have good jobs. I was a professional soccer referee, and that can sort of be seen as a fun fact, but that's actually relative and relevant to this race, because through that experience, I was part of the Professional Soccer Referee Association, which is the union that represents professional soccer referees in the US and Canada. And we actually had to go through a work stoppage to get fair compensation, and just to get like separate locker rooms for our female colleagues to change in, like very, very basic worker accommodations.
Basic stuff.
Exactly. Like, oh, like you want separate locker rooms. Ooh, like we had to go through a work stoppage to get that. And so like, I would also want to stand with our other unions so that working people can advocate for themselves, and I would also advocate for them at the legislative level.
And
go ahead, Doris. Go ahead.
Do you think, going back to police accountability, do you think you'd be able to, because it was my understanding that when those bills were put together with Representative Johnson at the time, enforcement was a part of that conversation. And so do you feel like you can go into conversation, courageous conversations, telling your story, asking them the hard questions, letting them ask you the hard questions, and coming to some sort of common ground? Do you think you are up for that challenge of doing that? Because I can't imagine how hard that might be for you, someone who's had an incident with them. So
I mean, like, to be quite frank, whenever I see a police officer still, there is like a little like thing that goes off in my heart and stomach a little bit. Like it's like, quite frankly, it's probably PTSD, quite frankly.
Yes.
That said, I have multiple friends from high school who are police officers. Two of my good friends are Capitol police officers and had to deal with the craziness of January 6th. Like, it's just because some police officers betray their oath does not mean that they're all bad. Like,
That's
we
right.
still need police officers in our community. I
That's
just want them
right.
to be professional, and I want the few of them who act out to be held accountable. I also want our society to think of public safety as more than police. Like, we shouldn't have to send a person with a gun to every interaction that deals with public safety, right? Like, we don't need police in our schools. We need counselors. We don't need guys with guns responding to mental health crises. We need counselors who are trained for this. Like, we just ask our police to do too much in things that they're not trained for. And so why are we surprised at the outcomes that we get aside from the bad actors, right? Like, the bad actors are a completely separate thing that we need to handle differently, right? Like, that just needs to be stopped point blank. But then, even if we didn't have those, we're still asking our police to do things that they're not trained for.
And I know Cindy and I talked about that when we ran for office. So that is, yeah, good point.
I want to ask you a question, and then I want to honor that we have questions coming in on the feed from people who are watching the show. So I wanted to probe with you just a little bit on the education space, because when you mentioned that you went to Brown University, that is a privately held school. And so I want to get your view, a private school, right? So I want to hear your views about, public education, and I want to hear your views about, do you believe that brown and black people have a right to have a choice about where their kids go to school here publicly, whether it be, let me just ask, do you believe that they should have a choice in how they attend public school?
For sure. Like, I want all kids to have a quality education. I'm personally a product of public schools through K through 12 education. I did go to a private university. So I would love to see people have those options. So specifically for post-secondary education, there's two things I would like to see. Number one, I would love the trades to be a respected option. I don't want to necessarily track our kids into the trades, but I think it should be an option that is respected. So for example, my two best friends from junior high school, they went through 4-year college. They got the traditional job after that, and they hated it. They didn't get paid well. It was stressful. It didn't align with what they like to do. They went back, became journeyman electricians, and love it. They get paid better, more stable hours. One's about to start his own electrical company. Like, it's awesome. I'm not saying that everyone has to go in the trades, just like everyone shouldn't have to go into tech to have a good job, but it should be a valued and respected option that we have for our kids. And then
let me ask you something about that, though, because your counterpart in the 37th, who's in the position 1, has taken a very public stance that not all children have critical thinking skills, not all kids, and she really emphasized the trades and all. And while I'm not arguing, I do agree about the trades and so forth. What has come out of the 37th historically has been an inference that brown and black kids don't have the capability to think deep. And so there has been a deflection, if you will, of allowing parents to, or supporting parents who want a choice for their kids to be able to go into schools and be able to learn critical thinking skills. So I don't want to belabor it, because this is the quickest 30 minutes of your life, trust me.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm just putting that out there because that is a concern in the 37th district about parents wanting the right to choose. We've had several comments come in through the feed. Let's get to, Daniel, let's bring up, we had some earlier comments. We've had comments around, someone's asking, are you from Seattle?
Nope, Washington, D.C.
Yeah, so I grew up in D.C. I've been in Seattle for 15 years. I came straight out of college, so I have more volunteer experience in this community than some of the other candidates have living here. So while Emijah is from the district, I would never want to take that away from her. And I never want to tear down a black woman. She is from the district. Yeah. I piece to that. I still would make the argument that I would be a more effective legislator.
We won't let you tear us down, Chipalo, just so you know.
Don't worry.
I can't even if I tried.
But I like that you got a little grace and love in there for her too. So that's good.
For sure.
Yeah.
And another question that came in that said, what is your position on social equity in cannabis?
Social equity in cannabis, we should 100% legalize weed, and we should make sure that the people who are in jail for minor weed infractions aren't in jail, that they can vote, and that they are the ones who can like sell this and have licenses for it, right? Like you want to talk about like experience with something, well then why don't you like give the people who have experience selling it, because you obviously said they have experience selling it because you put them in jail for it. Like why don't you make sure that they can lead the way in terms of when it gets legalized, so that
And
we
so,
can
and
reap
so it
those
is
benefits as well.
legalized here, and
For sure.
black men are being incarcerated at black men are going to jail at a 4-to-1 ratio for this issue. Now, today in the news comes out that we have, I don't want to say an excess, I don't think that's the term they use, but we have $1.5 billion worth of additional revenue now in the state of Washington. I don't know if you saw that come out today. And so if you believe in social equity for cannabis, for education, what would you do with that $1.5 billion extra that we have now to make decisions about where that money goes to?
I mean, there's many ways. Like the first thing we could probably start with is housing, right? Like let's stop the displacement of our communities that were traditionally redlined into the areas that they're in. And now when those communities become hot places to live, they get like taxed out, or they get priced out, or like, yeah, they have tons of equity in their house, but they can't access it because they would have to take out a high price loan. Like let's make sure that these folks don't have to leave the houses and communities that they have, because communities are really about people. Like there's so many ways, and like it's still in housing. Like when we talk about housing, I sort of view this in like two ways. There's like the long-term things that balance the market, and the short-term measures that we can use to get to that long-term vision. So like long-term vision, we need state investment in low-income housing, because the private market's not going to do that for us, because they can't make money off of it. We also need to increase density so that people can build more units around transit and then invest in that transit, and that takes state investment as well. And then in the short term, we need vouchers so that people can live in market rate housing that exists without spending their whole paycheck. We need short-term temporary rental assistance so that a very temporary hardship doesn't turn into them losing their home, because then it's harder for them to work and it's harder for their kids to go to school, and it just snowballs from there. So I think there's plenty of ways that we can reinvest that money in the communities that have been harmed as well. And I think I saw another question about my stance on gun violence.
Gun violence, yeah, gun control. What of gun control? How will you deal with that?
I'm completely for strengthening gun laws. Like let's start with the common sense ones that everyone is in agreement with, and then I would be support going even farther. Like I lost my first friend to gun violence in the 7th grade. I then lost 2 more in the 10th grade, and then more in 11th and 12th grade. Like talking about that makes me feel bad, because I don't really remember how many people I have lost, and then that makes me feel like the ones I don't remember mean less. So like that is something that's impacted my life since I was a kid, and I would love to see end, and no one should go through that.
So tell us about your campaign. How much money have you raised? How many doors have you knocked? These are the questions people are going to ask you, Joy.
For sure. Like the campaign that no one thought was going to happen, right? Like as we said before, it was like, hey, surprise, there's a campaign. Let's figure out if you're going to run. So like myself and I think everyone else we're all behind the 8 ball, because other campaigns have been going since January and February. We just got off the ground in like late April, early May. I'm blessed to say that I have a network that has allowed me to raise a lot of money. I think I'm at around like 52,000 or something like that right now. So like money means far too much in politics. It is extremely frustrating that you have to spend so much time calling people for money, but that's the state of our politics right now. So like the best way I look at it is like it lets me get the message out, and that I'm slightly okay with. So yeah, knocking on doors, like we are starting our canvassing this weekend. I'm super excited to do that, because that's the part that I think I'll enjoy the most of. I'd much rather be out in the community talking to people about what they want, as opposed to calling people and asking them for money as what they can do for me. So if you'd like to join the campaign, like go to the website, sign up and volunteer. If you want to donate, I have to ask you as a good candidate, please support the cause. But we'd love to see you out in canvassing as well. And that's where I think the campaign will really be fun.
And
I told you this was the quickest. Huh? Go ahead, Joy.
I both ran in 2018. I will say I started late too. You got this. Just because you start late, it's okay. I don't want you to feel like it's not, because I started late. I think, Cindi, in 2018, you started way before I did.
No, I filed right in May. I mean, I found out.
See, we both
started. There you go.
And it's hell. So I'm not. I will amplify what you just said. It's hell to raise money as grassroots.
It's
I did look
ours.
at your PDC today to see your fundraising, and I was looking at who is supporting you. I didn't have behind me what you have behind you. I'll just say that. So you have a leg up as far if you look at how my campaign went compared to how yours has started off. So look, I told you fastest 20-something minutes of your life. We just want to thank you for coming on with us to have
Thank
a
you for
quick
having me. I really
conversation with
appreciate
us.
it.
Yeah, we just wanted to make sure we get our candidates visible into our community. We're going to take a quick station identification, and then we're going to come back with another candidate who's running for the same seat, Emijah Smith. So let's just take a quick station ID. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Talk to you later.
I favor black businesses. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yeah. Yeah. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yo.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Check us out on social media. Facebook and Instagram, Rainier Avenue Radio.world, and on Twitter at Rainier Ave Radio.
Support Rainier Avenue Radio comes from Black Art Legacies, a multimedia project highlighting the vital role of Black artists and Black arts organizations, past and present, across the Northwest cultural landscape. Black Arts Legacies include video, photos, and written profiles highlighting 26 local artists and their unique contributions to the arts in Seattle and beyond. Visit crosscut.com/BAL to explore the artists, download podcasts, and more.
The beat of the Fox with nastiness is back on K-Fox Night Beat.
Yo, what's the deal? It's the legendary Hall of Fame DJ Mixmaster Ice from UTFO.
What's up? Who do you thought this is? This is Sir Mix-a-Lot.
And this is Terry Lewis.
And I'm Grand Mixer GMS.
What's up, y'all? This is DJ Third Degree.
This is JJ Hudson from the High Children family.
Sunday nights from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's K-Fox Night Beat with DJ Nastiness.
Bringing back the memories.
Bringing back the memories.
Bringing Seattle's hottest music.
Bringing Seattle's hottest music. Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
That's right. Noise.
Peace.
We got the feeling now.
R&B, soul, funk, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. We give you all that and more.
Via
Time. Join me, Paul Pearson, for a 2-hour trip through the history of R&B. A new episode every week on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Come and get the feeling on Star Time on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Are you a small business owner in Seattle who was impacted by COVID-19? The Seattle Office of Economic Development is investing $8 million to connect small businesses to operating capital. The Small Business Capital Access Program will lower the cost of Washington State Small Business Flex Fund loans by paying down 25% of the loan principal. Eligible small businesses can borrow up to $150,000 with a 4% interest rate to cover expenses like payroll, rent, utilities, and supplies.
You are listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Don't forget to log on www.rainieravenue radio.world.
That up in Saks, I favor black businesses. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yeah. Yeah. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yo.
Welcome back to Heartbeat Radio and Podcast. I'm your host, Cindi Bright. Thank you for joining us tonight. We are having two candidates on this evening that are discussing replacing or backfilling, if you will, the vacant position 2, I believe it is, in the 37th District, South Seattle, vacated by Kirsten Harris-Talley. Joy Stanford, my co-host, is here with me tonight. Joy, let's see, there she is. You're back. A good interview in the first half. We have our second half candidate, so we're excited to welcome in. She is known as Queen, so let's bring in the second candidate, Emijah Smith. Welcome.
Hello, everybody.
How are you?
I am wonderful. Happy
Good.
to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you for coming on with us tonight. We will give you the floor and let you talk to us about your campaign, why you're running, what you're running on, what's your platform, before we dive in with questions, our quick 20-something minutes worth of questions here.
Okay, here I go. My name is Emijah Smith. Please call me Emijah. I'm born and raised in the 37th Legislative District. I am a mother. I am a grandmother. I'm a survivor of the war on drugs in our community. So as a high school student, as a young person, I went forward to say that I am all about restoring and healing our community from those harms. I understand what it looks like and what it feels like to be under-resourced and underserved in your community. So that has been my journey ever since. And becoming a mother, I understand how to navigate these systems of education and healthcare. I've been doing legislative advocacy over 15 years in Olympia with families, utilizing our power and our voice to make meaningful change in the community. So I've been in Olympia, making sure we got the $400 million of reinvestment funds back into the community. I have been there as the voice to make sure that we had the Washington State Housing Finance, make sure that they were equitable in their resources, and got the Africatown Plaza, the Ethiopian Village, the Elizabeth Tommen Homes, PETA Village, all in the 37th district. I was part of that collaborative and of that collective voice. So I'm here. My vision is really simple. It's about healthy families and healthy communities. And what does that take? As a mother and as a grandmother, I understand what that actually means. And I am an effective, and I will be very effective, continually effective in Olympia, because I've already done the work and continue to do the work to this day. I'm a survivor of domestic violence, and I plan to champion legislation that will bring more protections and supports, because too often Black women and immigrant women, our stories are not believed. So that's what I'm here to do. I've been endorsed by our King County Council member, Gurmai Zahilai. Thank you as a sole endorsement. Our Seattle City Council member, Tammy Morales, Dr. Danielson, Rep. Jamila Taylor, Representative Jesse Johnson, Representative Tara Simmons, Dr. Danielson, a champion for our healthcare, Larry Gossett, our civil rights leader, Dominic Davis, our social justice champion for change in our community. These people would not put their name by my name and risk their reputation on me if they did not know and see that I do this work. And I stand out with the other candidates, not just because I'm from the district and have the historical context and the current context, but also because I've done the work for the numerous years, right? We have Chipalo, 15 years. I think that's wonderful. You have some context, that's great, but I have a lifetime of context. We have Nimco Bulale, wonderful person, but I think not really from the district, a brief time, been here for maybe a year, so 2 years max. We have Andrew, about 8 years. I have all my years of actual professional experience, community lived experience of doing the work. You could put all their time in the district together. I supersede that. So I think I'm the most effective, but not because it's a power trip or a money trip to be in Olympia, because it's about the heart and really leaving our community better than the way we found it. It's about pouring into our children and the generations that are coming in our future. Thank you.
And you're an Emerge graduate.
Yes. Yes.
Cindi gets inundated with us, so it's okay.
I am not an Emerge graduate. And we're
going to have to make her an honorary one, because she says that every time.
Yeah, and I bring a lot of you guys onto the show. I wanted to ask, when I was looking at your long history, Emijah, in the community, you've done quite a bit. I read about your advocacy in education, so I'd like to hear your views about education for Brown and Black kids, where you stand on that, whether you do you support choice for Brown and Black families to have choice for education for their students? What are your thoughts about that? That'd be my first question. I'll let you answer that.
Thank you. Again, as a high school student, thinking about how we can, have increased material, the conditions of the Black community, I do believe that education is a way out of your circumstances. So I've been an avid advocate for education, learning about how the education system even works from the federal government down to our state level and how it trickles down into our districts. I've been a fierce advocate in Seattle public schools. Anybody could tell you who a community queen is in Seattle public schools. So I'm a catalyst to the current strategic plan of Seattle public schools that is focusing on students furthest from educational justice and focusing on our Black males and our brown males as well. So this is not new to me. I have Black boys. I know what that navigation looks like. I understand what a special education you can make it work for you, but too often it's not working for our kids and sending them into the prison pipeline. And so I'm a fierce advocate there. I believe that our families, Black and brown, should have access to choice, because we shouldn't have to just sit and be underserved by one system while it's trying to get itself together, right? We should be able to have access to other opportunities, and none of those systems are perfect. But I believe not just Black and brown families, but all families should have access to choice for what's best for their students, particularly our students who need special education resources. The state still needs to fully fund that. Our Indigenous community are not being fully served. So yeah, I'm a fierce advocate on local level and state level. I make things happen.
We asked that because we've had some kids on here that we interviewed that were in the public school system and then went to a charter school, public school. And it was amazing to hear them speak, to see their demeanor, and then hear their parents speak to say, this was not my child 1, 2, 3 years ago. This is not the same child. This child has blossomed. So it's good to hear you say that.
It's not fair to our children to have to continue to keep suffering while these systems are trying to get themselves together. In the meantime, we have to do both. It's a both and. And in the meantime, we should prioritize the quality education for our students so that they can have access to career, the trades, whatever they choose to do, but they need to have an opportunity.
Yes. Emijah, I read the article in the Times also about your stance on social equity in the cannabis space. Would you like to speak on that too?
Yeah, as a survivor of the war on drugs and really watching my friends, be criminalized or, suffer from that, I believe that when it was legalized, I always questioned, if we can't get into the job opportunities, if we can't be in the economic development of this legalization, that was going to be harmful to our community. So I've always been firm to say, let's get these dollars back into the hands of those who were most harmed. Let's hear from those who were most impacted, what that could look like. Because it's not just that you got arrested. It's that you lost housing access because you had a record. It's because you could have had your family split apart because you had a record. There's all types of things that could have occurred. So that those monies need to go back and be poured directly into those who are most harmed. And
what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts about the community reinvestment money that is coming back into our communities? How that should be allocated? It's a $400,000 over 3 years. And then the second part of that question, I don't know if you heard me ask this to Chipalo, but today in the news, there's this article that came out about $1.5 billion worth of additional revenue, unanticipated revenue in the state of Washington. What should we do with that money that's coming back into the state?
First of all, I'm excited. And I'm just going to say it really took Black and brown people to advocate for that money. And it was hard. It was not won easily, put it like that. So I think that it should go into small businesses and organizations that are Black and brown led, but it also can serve our BIPOC communities overall. But we need to make sure those who have been most harmed can be most healed and most restored. I sit on the King County's Community Investment Budget Committee right now. So King County it's just $10 million, but it's a good start. That's also targeting those marijuana revenue dollars into Skyway, into White Center, to the neighborhoods that were, again, most harmed, looking to see what projects can improve the community overall. So that's how I feel the small businesses give people an opportunity, because currently they're still not given the licenses to folks to even participate in the economic development of the war on crime. I mean, on this, Lord, I'm getting tongue twisted. The war on drugs on our community through marijuana.
What's holding up the licenses?
Excuse me?
What is holding up the licenses?
There's a cap. There's just people seeing it from different sides. So folks who may have been able to benefit off of this don't want to, if you bring in more licenses, then it's a competition, how you get yourself started. I'm not the expert on it, but I've learned a great deal by sitting on committees and coalitions to better understand what's happening across the state. It's a lot of cost to start your business, so these reinvestment dollars should be able to support those, again, who've been most harmed so that they can prosper in the economic development. There's a lot of tax dollars coming here. And I think they should be focusing on the unhoused, workforce development, definitely education, anything that can heal the harm to those who are most harmed by the process. But we shouldn't be left out of the process.
There it is right there. It's not being left out. And but I don't see the equity as you've got more folks that are not businesses and businesses that are thriving in communities where there may be 2 cannabis stores, versus Seattle that has a lot. But I'm going to just use out here in where I live, 2 or maybe 3, maybe 3. But where's the equity in that you're giving it to Black and brown folks as well, and Indigenous folks? I mean, I don't know. Do the Indigenous people want that? They've got cigarettes. I don't know. But where's the equity in all that?
At the end of the day, it's a racial justice issue. It's an equity issue. And if we're really going to be about our talk and we want to be about action, we have to push and advance racial equity. Bottom line, that's just what it is. And so it's going to happen through our policies. It's going to happen through our legislation, right? So I want to go to the next level and be in Olympia to not only utilize my voice, which has been very effective, but now utilize the power of my vote to ensure that something's happening, that we're bringing us all along forward through the process.
And your district, the 37th, is it arguably the most diverse district in the state of Washington? I think so. I don't know that for a fact, but I know you're heavily diverse.
We're heavily diverse with the gentrification and displacement,
Yes.
It's moving into other districts. I know that Skyway has the most African-American population. But I want to catch the numbers because the displacement is happening so rapidly. I don't want to misquote or misstate, but it is my understanding that the 37th has been the most, not only diverse, but it's been like the most impacted. This is like from air quality, our soil quality, healthcare access, people being incarcerated. When you look at the numbers across the state, it's gonna say King County, but when you think about King County, where the dense population of African American and Indigenous and brown people, it's been here in the 37.
Yeah.
Did you catch the first part of the show before we brought Chipalo on, when I was talking about the article that was written, the interview with Representative Harris-Talley, and the things that she talked about, what was going on down in Olympia. And she talked about feeling othered, silenced and, shaped and whipped and told to get in line. She talked about an environment of toxicity, and she talked about leadership that lacked integrity. She called out there's a lot of good people down there, the most principled people she's seen, but she really honed in on the world that we all live in on a daily, and it seemed amplified in the caucus. And so I just wonder how you respond to that, or how will you deal with that? And let me say that a little bit different. Joy and I Joy's been on with me over a year now, but this show is in its 5th year, and we've been talking about these issues, every week, and helping to propel people. Particularly, we've really focused our show heavily on Black women, as I shared with you, to propel and help get into office. Yeah. But if all this work we're doing out here to help trying to level the playing field is taken away with you younger people who have the energy, Joy and I are the same age, and we are in our upper.
We are not going to run for office again.
How do we sustain, the people that we're trying to help get into office, and how will they navigate through that kind of stuff? I will put, that's the term I'll use. What do you think about that?
Well, I wasn't at the top of the hour when you asked the question, but it wasn't a surprise to me. Again, I've been going to Olympia over 15 years. So it is an isolating place. I make sure I say hi to all the people of color there, just to give them a warm smile, because the space in there could feel very toxic if you're not used to it. I'm not really going there to, to be accepted. My community accepts me. I'm going there to represent. I'm not surprised at all the experience, because there's some people, if you say the word equity, you might get shut down in the conversation. So this is not really new to me. It is unfortunate the isolated way people feel. And I just hope to, build relationship and strength that we can lock arms together with other folks there so you don't feel alone. But I anticipated this already before I ever even thought I would step into the race, because I'm in those spaces. And so when we go there as families together, we make sure we go together. You don't send somebody into the state capitol to testify or anything alone because of that, the way it feels, because of the isolation, because of the microaggressions that are up there. So I feel prepared for that. I mean, I wish that was not the feeling for Kirsten Harris-Talley, because I thought she was doing a wonderful job, but she went there to hold the space. And then she also brought back the truth to prepare whoever goes next. So I think that was a sign for me to be prepared. So that's the way I take it. And I have to honor her decision. And I'm there to hold that space. I'm there to hold that space. See, I've been there long enough that even if I have testified, the way I'm showing up here is the way I've already showed up there. So I'm going to move with my integrity. I'm going to maintain who I am and be unapologetically me. But also I understand you have to build relationship. You have to see other people's perspectives. You need to play along, but you do not have to sell out. You do not have to I'm going to walk with dignity. I got to come back to the Safeway and to the community center. That's what I'm saying. I need my people to be.
You got to still be authentic and genuine. You got to still be authentic and genuine.
Go ahead, Joy.
I remember going and not seeing anyone I'm testifying in front of that looked like me, like 5, 6, 7 years ago, maybe even longer than that. And I was like, oh my God, what was and I just remember I just read what I came to read, and so, yeah, it's, I'm glad you're going there. I think the 37th is going to be better for you or Chipalo, whichever one gets through there. You guys got to fight it out. But I'm glad that you guys are just taking this on and stepping into that space, both of you, to say we're here. We're going to still represent our community because we look like our community. So
I do want to add that my elementary school and middle school, even some high school experience prepared me for this. I was always the 1 or 2 Black kids in my classroom in my education experience. So to go up there and be a little bit alone and feel that, I think that I was prepared for this in advance.
I think we've all had, as Black women, we've all had most of our careers or most of our life where you walk into a place or space and you are it.
Yeah, but the difference is I've built really great relationships over that time. So I think it's a testament of how I move and how I'd like to see the humanity of other people and just relate on the human level, because I've had great friends since high school, great friends since middle school who have diverse backgrounds and don't look like me and didn't come back to my neighborhood, right? And also I feel like I've helped people to respect my experience, right? And to learn and grow. I consider myself a seed planter. So I just like to help people get an understanding so we can grow and develop together, try to meet people where they are. But at the same time, always bring and make people understand I have a lived experience that needs to be valued and respected.
I love that.
One of the things you said just a couple minutes ago, and my head was, I was mulling over, how do I ask her this question without my normal, as Joy would say, going for the gut question. But you commented about which is what I believe Representative Talley did. You go represent your constituents, and you said I believe I could go do that, build relationships, and not sell out when I get down there. And so I guess my question is, when we look at elected officials, Black and brown elected officials who get in, is there a view that our other elected officials are selling out in order to survive? Do you have a perspective about that?
My perspective is that people use different strategies. So people can take it how they want. I do think people are just surviving, but you have to decide the values and the principles you're going to walk forward with. Our ancestors were descendants of the stolen ones. We got to hold a firm boundary. At some point, in order for you to look at yourself in the mirror, you have to decide where that boundary is. And I'm gonna hold firm. I believe I got the spirit of Harriet Tubman, so I'm gonna keep it pushing forward. I don't believe in that sellout because it hasn't gotten us anywhere.
Right.
To be honest, we're still stagnant. We're still our material conditions as Black community are very similar to when we, came out of enslavement. So I don't see the point in doing that. I think
when we show up for who we are, we become Shay Moss, right? Are we watching Shay Moss in the news, like a Black woman stepping up and doing the right thing, and then we fall under a massive attack, which is what I'm assuming happened with Representative Harris and probably Representative Johnson. I'm speculating, but both of them were definitely advocates for police reform. The minute you speak out, it's a problem. And so I'm just saying that because we need you or whomever wins the seat to muscle up and not allow them to do this sort of stuff to you or to us. We've only got a couple more minutes left here. I know you're the chief of staff on King County Equity Now. Do you want to comment about the work on King County Equity Now and what they're doing?
I will share that King County Equity Now, starting out as really a lot of volunteers being activists in the streets, is now a formalized, very new organization that's really pushing policy advocacy and really supporting other organizations in our ecosystem to be a voice, to use our base, to really get the education out there, get the issues out there. So I do believe that King County Equity Now is an essential organization in our community that can help with strengthen our partnerships and definitely strengthen our voice in Olympia and on the local level. And I'm proud to be a person there to help formalize and help strengthen and structure the organization to be a strong advocacy organization.
Awesome. Tell us about your campaign. I'm going to ask that because I'm an emergency.
Yeah.
How many doors have you knocked? What have you raised? What's going on?
I love how Chipalo answered the question and he really didn't.
No, he said he came in late. He said he came into and I can understand because I did too with my race in 2018. I came in late.
I'm gonna be honest. I feel good about the campaign. First of all, coming in late. First of all, being new to the campaign system, I guess you would say, because I'm a natural anti-racist organizer. I'm less of a politician. I've been doing the work, and I feel like I've been doing the work in Olympia in a very effective way in the style that I normally have. So I'm outdoor knocking, targeting our primary voters, of course, but really letting the community know they got a real one out here really going to do this work, been doing this work first and foremost, and garnering that support. I'm the Mercer PTSA president, right? So I have connections with families, not only locally, but across the state, who have seen the work. So I'm really just banking on the relationships that I have, going out door knocking. I love talking to people about this work. It's an amazing thing to do. The fundraising to me has been great. I'm not, there's a hierarchy in it. I'm not at the bottom. I'm gonna say that right there. And that's a testament that people want to see someone like me who's really going to represent our voice because I have the historical and current context of the issues there. So it's not over, but yeah, I have a nice base of volunteers who are out here helping me. And I'm not just going to go to the primary voters who are homeowners. I'm going to the new faces in the community, the apartment complexes. We're going to hit every place. But the door knocking is the best way for people to get to know you and to build some trust and to build some relationship.
Have we shown her campaign website?
I didn't think I saw that come up.
Let's see, we'll get it up. Here we go.
Yeah, electedmeasure.com. I love it.
Would love volunteers. If you want to join and have some fun with this, learn the process. I welcome you into the space. And similar to what others are saying, it's about donate. So if whatever you can give that's meaningful for you, it'll be greatly appreciated. It'd be meaningful, and it's not money that's going to waste. It's definitely an investment in your community.
Awesome. Well, look, Emijah, we want to just thank you for coming on with us this evening and having this conversation. When I first called you the other day and I was explaining to you about, I didn't know if you'd heard a heartbeat, and I said to you, we try to amplify Black women. And I said, you're speaking to one, even though I don't sound like one. And you laughed and you said, I could recognize that nasal tone. And
So we just want to thank you for thanks for taking the call and for coming on to the show with us.
Absolutely.
We're wishing you the best in your campaign, and to our audience who joined us today, thank you for joining us. We had 2 great candidates on today. So you get to go out to the ballots and vote for who you want of these 2 candidates. Next week's show will be an interesting show. Thank you, Emijah. Next week's show, we have scheduled Senator Patty Cooter is coming on with us to talk about the gun control laws and the things that have been going on in Olympia, as well as we have Lisa Mannion coming on next week, who is the first woman to run for King County prosecutor role. So that'll be an exciting conversation. And Joy's taking vacation next week, so we won't have her on with us next week. But I'll look forward to seeing you all next week. Thank you for joining us tonight. You guys all have a good evening. See you next week.
Thanks, Cindy. Free Britney. Free Britney.
Free Britney.
Set up a sacks. I favor black businesses. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yeah. Yeah. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yo.